think Neil Gaiman put it best when he said...
So this is The Color of Magic. It's a romp, and it's a terrible place to start. It's like trying to understand P.G. Wodehouse by beginning with his school stories. And it's a collection of jokes, and in The Color of Magic, they aren't even very good jokes.
However, many Discworld fans, myself included, chose to start reading the series with The Color of Magic. And when people ask, where should you start, it still comes up as one of the main entry points to the Discworld series as a whole. So, what is The Color of Magic? The Color of Magic is the story of Rincewind, a cowardly, conniving wizard, two Z's, and Twoflower, an honest-to-God actual tourist, who should be Asian, by the way. Seriously, in the books, he's from the actual Orient, like the Discworld's version of China. Seriously, I don't know about you, but I, for one, am honestly sick of this sort of whitewashing in fantasy, cinema, and literature and stuff. And I mean, yeah, I know he's an unflattering portrayal of the stereotypical Asian tourist and whatnot, but I mean, come on, how many actual Asian Discworld characters do we have? I mean, don't take away what little we actually have. Come on, BBC. I mean, like, alright, fine. At least it isn't Chinese burn or anything.
And don't assume we can do the other ping pong.
Oh god, why? Anyways, Rincewind and Twoflower wind up together and end up going on a series of misadventures across the disc. Joining them is Twoflower's luggage, a sentient chest which houses a bottomless void that Twoflower uses to carry all his stuff, and which has the ability to follow its master anywhere. And I do mean anywhere. The thing about The Color of Magic is that it doesn't really have a plot, per se. It's really just a loose collection of vignettes starring Rincewind, Twoflower, and the luggage, with the main draw of the book being the world itself, which the trio explores. Which, of course, leads us to the question, how does the world of The Color of Magic work? The Color of Magic is set in the Discworld, a flat earth resting on the back of 4 giant elephants, which in turn rest on the back of Great Atuan, a massive sea turtle who swims through space. The world itself is commonly referred to as the Disc, and instead of traditional cardinal directions, terms like hubwards, rimwards, turnwise, and widdershins are used to establish locations and directions. This aspect of the world remains consistent throughout the whole series, which, I mean, is pretty apparent given the fact that it's called Discworld. And Atuan is on the thumbnail of this video, for crying out loud. So, most of the world-building details of the disc, though, tend to be somewhat unformed in this entry of the series. Several people and places, such as the cities of Ankh-Morpork and Quirm, the deities of Fate and Offler the Crocodile God, and the characters of Rincewind, Twoflower, and the luggage make their very first appearances in The Color of Magic. However, there are some details about them all that don't quite match their finalized forms. Ankh-Morpork, for instance, has almost none of its recognizable landmarks except for the Broken Drum Tavern, and its river is clean, of all things. I mean, you could probably swim in it, even. It's just so weird. And that's to say nothing about the characters. As much as I complain about whitewashing with Twoflower, the fact of the matter is that The Color of Magic doesn't actually mention what race he is. That doesn't come around until Interesting Times, the 17th book of the series. And Rincewind is a lot nastier in this book than he is in later ones. The characterization most people are familiar with regarding Rincewind is that of a lovable coward. He's always running away and moping around, but when push comes to shove, his basic human decency will always get the better of him, and he'll find a way to help those in trouble. In The Color of Magic, though, he's only looking out for himself, and he's more than happy to swindle Twoflower out of his money, with him only being forced to do anything decent through threats or happenstance. Also, unlike in later books where it's made clear that he has sort of this tsundere relationship with Two Flower, in this book it's very clear that Rincewind hates his companion and can't wait to get rid of him. While this may be jarring to people more familiar with Rincewind's more lovable personality, it can also be easily explained by simple character development. Rincewind starts out as a scheming, sniveling coward, but over the course of the series learns to appreciate his friends and to be a better person. A change you can't explain with character development, though, is that of Death, who also makes his first appearance in this book. Rather than the moody, introspective fellow we would all come to know and love, though, Death in The Color of Magic is an outright sadist, randomly killing people and even a cat just because he's in a foul mood. He even taunts Rincewind throughout the book, he's so eager to add another kill to his list. About the only piece of characterization that would carry over to later books is his appearance and the world-building detail that every wizard who dies must be taken by Death personally. Speaking of the wizards, this also marks their first appearance in the Discworld, with Unseen University being mentioned as Rincewind's alma mater, and with several flashbacks detailing his misadventures there. The only staff member of the university who makes an appearance, though, is the librarian, and he isn't even an orangutan yet, just some normal human wizard. Weird. The Octavo, a grimoire of intense power which was used to create the Discworld, makes its first appearance here as well, as does the titular color of magic, Octarine, only visible to wizards and cats, but they don't really play much of a role, except to explain why Rincewind can't do magic. You see, okay, so when Rincewind was a student, alright, he secretly had a peek in the Octavo, and then one of the 8 spells it contained crawled its way into his brain, and it wouldn't let any other magic get in. Not much is made of this, though, except in providing a handy deus ex machina that Rincewind can unintentionally use to get himself out of a jam. Despite all these aspects being half-baked and not yet fully formed, this is still a pretty impressive amount of world-building crammed into a very thin volume. So, with such an impressive world, you're all probably wondering, what does The Color of Magic have to say? And the answer to your question is...
Dramatic pause. Did you actually want me to do the dramatic pause? Interesting.
Not a single blessed thing! You probably thought that I was only skimming with my summary of the plot, but really, that is all there is to it. It's a series of misadventures with a trio of travelers and... nothing else, really. There are plenty of parodies of other famous fantasy works, such as Elric of Melniboné or the Dragon Riders of Perm, but Pratchett doesn't really deconstruct or examine the works he parodies, so much as just show off sillier versions of them. I wish I had more to say on what this book has to say, but I just don't, really. I'm sorry. So let's instead get to my final verdict. Okay, so I first read The Color of Magic on December 25th, 2014. I spent the whole day reading it. I was just so taken with it. And all my friends who were Discworld fans told me that it got better. You know, don't worry, this isn't the good stuff, but it gets better. But they didn't need to tell me that, honestly, because I was already hooked. If you remember my interview with Kian Not Keith, you'll remember that my first forays into writing were just shittier versions of Douglas Adams. So, reading the fantasy equivalent of Adams's science fiction was exactly the sort of thing that appealed to me at that age. And it appealed to me so much, in fact, that I decided to write a letter to Sir Terry Pratchett. I spent all of Boxing Day just writing the letter, getting it right, you know, and I had it all ready to go. And then something stopped me. Because again, all my friends who are Discworld fans said, no, this is the bad stuff. Don't, it gets better, but it's the crap that you have to wade through to get to the good stuff. And the more I thought about those comments, the more I started to get worried. Maybe Terry Pratchett wouldn't appreciate hearing from a fan who had only read his bad stuff. Maybe he would want me to keep reading, keep wading through all that crap until I was finally, I guess, worthy enough to write him and to tell him how much his book meant to me. So I put aside my letter, and I decided to wait until I had reached this supposedly good stuff before writing to Sir Terry. And 3 months later, he was dead. I never got to send him the letter that I'd written and thrown away. And I know now that, his Alzheimer's was so bad at that point that he may not even have been able to read my letter by the time he would have gotten it. But I still regret never sending it in the first place. I still regret chickening out because I just thought that my letter would have been a waste of his time. In the context of the rest of the series, The Color of Magic is indeed one of the worst entries. I would recommend it to someone serious about going through all the Discworld books, or a die-hard fantasy fan who would get all the jokes and references, but I would never recommend it to a general reader or someone only mildly curious about the series. Even so, I do think there is a valuable lesson I learned from The Color of Magic, and it's this. If there is a creator who inspires you, whose works touch you in some way, don't be afraid to write to them or tell them what their work means to you. Even if it's the bad stuff, don't feel like you'd be wasting their time in telling them how much you like it. If they're busy, then they probably won't have time to respond, but as a creator myself, I can tell you right now that any positive comment means so much to a writer or an artist or a musician or just anyone who makes anything. Just don't ever feel like you're wasting someone's time in saying how much you loved their work, because for all you know, you may not have that much time left. I mean, none of us know how much time we have left. For its own merits, I would give The Color of Magic a 6 out of 10. It's fun, popcorn fluff, but nothing more. If you like Douglas Adams-style humor and fantasy references, then you'll like this book as much as I did. But otherwise, it's probably better if you skip this one. For how it relates to the Discworld series and my journey as a writer, though, I would say The Color of Magic was only the start of something precious and invaluable. So, once again, I'm Mark O'Keen, signing off, and I hope you liked this video. If you did, and you'd like to see me make more, please leave a like or comment down below, share my video via Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or other means, and subscribe to my channel.